All right. So I'm potentially live right now, but I want to wait a moment just to make sure that everything's working good. It's been a while since I've streamed, and it looks like it is. If people start to pop into the chat, I'll be responding to you. This is going to be kind of like a chat between me and you. But also, it's going to serve as sort of a life update, so I can explain where I've been over the last however many months, explain why things have been the way they are, but I just generally want to talk about how things have been going and all that good stuff and answer any questions that you might have in the chat. So, again, I want to wait a moment just to make sure that people are popping in and I'm not just rambling off to the void. So, I am going to make sure that I'm live and the stream is going well. Let's see. Got audio there and got audio. Let me post a tweet right now on the YouTube. Hello, how are you doing? And Twitch right now. There we go. Posting up a tweet. That particular chat came from YouTube, so that's good confirmation that it's working on YouTube. So I think we're good to go. I can just go ahead and begin. So what am I here for? Let me actually shrink the chat just a little bit. Hopefully you all can see the chat well enough, and I'll move it. Oh, don't want to move that. I want to move this down here. There we go. All right, so anyway, so what am I doing this for and where have I been? Let's see, where to begin? So I'm going to start by just talking about the fact that I'm about to be on vacation. So that's why I'm doing this. I finally have a break. It's been a while. To be honest, I've had jobs in the past where I've had vacation and I used the vacation, like I didn't go to work. But during that time off, I was working on personal projects and I was always working on something. So this time around, what I'm doing is I'm actually taking the time off. Like I'm going to not do any work for 9 days straight. And that is the first time I think I've done that in, it's got to be at least 4 or 5. No, it's more than that. For that long, it's probably been at least 8 or 9 years since I've actually not worked for an extended period of time. And I'm talking extended period of time as in like a week. So yeah, this is going to be challenging, but I think it's going to be very rewarding for me to get the rest and relaxation that I need, reset my brain, and not just write code all day, every day. So with that being said, that means that if I have vacation time, I'm working. So as you all know, or at least the majority of you probably know on the YouTube channel, that I was a freelancer for a long time. I haven't really done many job updates, so you probably don't know what's been going on. But basically, I don't know how long ago, maybe 2 years ago, I decided to take up a job as a senior front-end software engineer. I did that for about a year. After I was there for about a year, I decided to leave that company because that company was scaling at a very rapid pace. And I mean rapid as in they doubled in size in about a month. And within that period of time, in that month, the entire organization completely changed. And that's what happens at startups. That's what happens at tech startups, to be honest. But it just happened in a way that I wasn't as comfortable with. So I didn't, hey, Matthew, how you doing? Where are you based out of? Also, Abik. I'm really bad at pronouncing foreign names. I apologize ahead of time. Abik, where are you from? And Matthew, where are you from? Where are you all from today? But yeah, what I was saying was I couldn't really keep up with the management constantly changing and the requirements constantly changing and my job literally changing every 3 days and what I was going to be working on changing. I like to work on one thing and I like to put all of my focus into one thing and I like to go all in. And so I did that there for a year, but then, like I said, they doubled in size and that sort of wrecked it. So I decided to leave. Then I took some time away from working directly. I did some more freelancing. I did some personal projects and that sort of thing for, I want to say it was probably, I don't know, several months, maybe 6 months. After that, I found a job at another large corporation that I will not name. If you know, you know. Um, I worked there for about 3 months, and I worked there as a staff UI engineer. And my job there was really interesting. What I did was I basically convinced, I say convinced, I explained why the way that they were doing what they were doing was wrong. Put together a presentation as to how it should be done. Then they gave me a team to lead basically this project through. I built the project, onboarded a team onto this particular stack, and then got them familiar with it. It was things like React, Node.js on the back end, certain testing tools, Cypress, shout out, and many other things, and basically had to do all this crazy stuff. But then the management wanted me to do all of this basically like project manager type work, and that's not what I like to do. And I explained this, and I was like, I want to be an engineer. I don't want to be writing Excel spreadsheets all day, which is really what it was starting to turn into. They really wanted me to take a management position, and I was like, that's not really what I want. So I decided to leave there. Then there was a period of time where I was just off of work, another few months that I worked on personal projects and that sort of thing. Before I continue, I'm going to respond to Matthew really quick. So Matthew says, I'm from New York and unvaccinated. I've been watching your videos and learning a lot of tech, especially the what? Any thoughts on I don't know what you're saying, unfortunately. So, but anyway, where was I at? So after about a few months of not being on a job, like a formal job where I'm working for a company, I decided I wanted to try to get hired by like an actual tech company, like a big tech company. I was thinking something like Facebook, something like Google or Microsoft, but not Microsoft, Google, or Facebook. So I started to really hone my skills. I was doing a lot of coding challenges, quite a few, actually. I spent a long time really honing my skills. I pronounced the name correctly. Good vibes. You're from India. Okay. I'm really glad that I pronounced it right because I feel like I have a basic understanding of how to pronounce different languages' names, but I just know that depending on who you are, you could be offended if somebody pronounces it incorrectly, and it's like, I try to do it, but I know sometimes I get it wrong, but I'm glad that I got yours right. How are you doing today? In the United States, it's Halloween. I highly doubt you all celebrate that in India, but, well, actually, it's not Halloween today. It's Halloween weekend. Halloween is on a Sunday this year, but basically here in the United States, we dress up and pretend to be kids again while the kids eat candy. Anyway, so I honed my skills and I finally decided, you know what, I'm going to apply to Shopify. And I went through a very long interview process. I think it was less than a month, but it was the longest interview process I ever went through, and ended up getting hired as a senior software engineer at Shopify. So currently I am a senior software engineer at Shopify. And I'm just going to say, I love Shopify. I think I align well with their values, and I just think they're a great company, and I really I support everything that Shopify stands for, and I'm really looking forward to continue being a part of Shopify for the foreseeable future. Now, with that being said, that means the last however long between working those 3 different jobs that I was telling you and the gaps in between and what I've been doing, I've been really busy, and because of that, I haven't been able to put out the content that I normally put out. And so I've found that, again, I kind of like to go 100% in on whatever I'm doing. So if I'm working a job and I'm on a project and now I have a certain requirement I need to meet, I like to do that 10, 12 hours a day, every day. Like I like to focus on that and put my 100% effort into that. And so because of that, that doesn't leave me any time to kind of balance out and do other things like YouTube. So what I want to try to do is balance that out and continue doing YouTube. In fact, I made I've written quite a bit of code. I've finished several projects. I've even written out exactly how the tutorials are going to go, but I haven't recorded them yet. And one is actually really interesting that I'm really excited to do. And I finished the code probably 4 or 5 months ago. I just haven't had the time to sit down and record it and do all the editing because that really takes the longest amount of time. The coding part really doesn't take that long. What takes the longest is recording and then editing all the content. So this particular tutorial is like basically a React kind of turn-based fighting game, kind of like based off of Pokemon, sort of. But the characters are Mega Man and Samus, and it's pretty cool. I might pull it up later. I doubt it, but maybe I will. We'll see. But it's pretty cool. It's got animations, it's got sprites, and all kinds of cool stuff, and an AI. But I just haven't recorded it, and I finished all the code. So my point is that I'm still thinking about the YouTube channel a lot, and I still really want to put a lot of effort into tutorials and videos in general, and build content for this. But what I'm trying to find right now is a balance between my crazy work ethic, if you want to call it that, and my creative side. Because outside of just working for a company and wanting to strive to do good there, and also having this YouTube channel, I also do a lot of other stuff. I make music. I run. I do a lot of physical activities like hiking and weightlifting and that sort of thing. So I kind of do a lot of stuff. And so trying to find a balance is just impossible. So what ends up happening is I go through these phases where I do whatever. Point is, I'm going to continue doing YouTube, but I don't know if there's any way I can commit to any particular schedule, because I may spit out like 20 videos in 6 months, which I've done several times, and then just disappear for like another 6 months and not do anything. So yeah, that's kind of just how I am with the YouTube. And also another reason why I think a lot of people like this channel is because of two reasons, really. One is because I'm not overly formal, like I just kind of say whatever's on my mind, but also because I'm really to the point. Like, I think with most tutorials, and what inspired me to be this way is this man named Derek Banas. I think that's how you pronounce his last name, or it might be Banas. Derek Banas. Banas. He inspired me really because when I was first learning how to code, he had all these tutorials that were like really fast paced. So you could learn an entire programming language, no joke, everything that you would want to learn about a programming language, such as Ruby, Python, JavaScript, whatever, in one video. And that video would typically be between 45 minutes and 2 hours long. And it was always really fast paced, because what I realized was you can pause the video. Like, there's no reason for the content itself to pace itself, really, because the viewer can pause the video and move at their own pace. It may be slightly inconvenient for some people who are slower learners who can't keep up with the dialogue, but you can also slow down the video. And that's another thing that I found is with the video controls, you can do like 0.25%, 0.25x, half speed, etc. And so because of that, I realized by creating content that gets straight to the point with very little filler, in terms of educational content at least, you're really bringing better value because you're wasting less time. And if it's too fast, then people can pause and slow it down. And I think that that gung-ho way of doing things is kind of one of the reasons why this channel was successful in the beginning. Another reason it was probably successful is because I was doing a lot of hands-on projects, a lot of which were vanilla JavaScript, and I feel like a lot of these like vanilla JavaScript hands-on tutorials were just missing from YouTube. And it really is funny because it started off with the JavaScript calculator tutorial, and I was just honestly one day bored. I got off work and I just didn't have anything to do that particular night. I liked to exercise my coding abilities. So what I decided to do was I was like, I'm going to build a calculator in vanilla JavaScript, but I'm going to record myself doing it and explain it and basically upload it to YouTube. And that's what I did. And that video got like 80,000 views or something like that. I don't know. But it was a crappy tutorial, honestly. And so I was trying to figure out, why did it explode? Why did this video that I think is kind of meh get so popular? And I think it was because there was not much filler, and also it was a hands-on raw tutorial where I was just explaining my thoughts as I was going. So it was like you were learning my thought process. So Abik says, I learned a lot from your videos. As long as you post quality tutorials, I guess no one will complain about the quantity of videos you are posting. Right. And so I don't get that very often. I don't get too many people saying like, hey, where's the next video? But I do get them. Sometimes people will message me on Twitter or reach out to me on comments or something like that and say, hey, it's been a while since you've uploaded a video. Can you do this? Can you do that? And that's another thing. There's so many requests for videos that are so specific. Like, hey, can you do a Next.js tutorial that uses TypeScript? Or, hey, can you do this, that, and the other in this specific combination of tutorials? And it's starting to make me realize that really what's happening is people don't have a fundamental understanding of these technologies, right? Because if you understood Next.js, if you really understood Next.js and you really understood TypeScript, you wouldn't need a tutorial on Next.js with TypeScript. You know what I mean? Like, if you understood these technologies, you wouldn't need a specific tutorial for these things. The point of my tutorials, what I want to try to do, is try to get you to understand how the technology works so that you can really learn how this stuff works and go out on your own and start building your own projects. And so when I do a tutorial, like a Next.js tutorial, I'm basically walking you through how everything works, hopefully. I mean, I might skip some things because I just don't think of it, but I try to give as much information as possible. For example, like the majority of my React tutorials, especially in the beginning, I was going through how all of that was working, like how the React app was being injected into the root element, how CSS modules is a thing, all these things. I was explaining everything along the way. So the point was that you're supposed to really try to listen to what I'm saying and not try to just copy my code. And that's another thing, is people will also beg for me to like just give them the code or something. And I'm like, that defeats the purpose, really, because I'm trying to explain how the technology works. It's not about the code. Like, if it was about the code, odds are it's probably some college students, maybe trying to just get something for their homework. Now, if that's you, there's nothing wrong with that. I've been there. I mean, I took calculus and I really struggled with certain concepts in that, and I had to watch YouTube videos to solve some of the problems in my homework. So I know that. And also, like, you're paying for college and you want to do good in college so that you can get a good degree, so you can have a good job. Totally get it. But it would be more valuable to you if you actually really learned the technology, because then you're going to be providing more value in general, and the more value you provide, the more you're worth. So that's just something to think about. But I'm not saying these things to try to demean anybody. I'm just saying it will be more valuable for you if you just learn these technologies instead of trying to find tutorials for your very specific needs. And yeah, it's a more of a time investment for sure, but it's definitely just a better thing all around. So yeah, this live stream is mostly just basically me ranting. But I just want to talk. It's been a while since I've updated all of you, and I want you all to know what's going on and that I'm still continuing to think about this channel. And by the way, after this stream, I'm going to be going over to my Twitch. The username is PortExe, of course. PortExe. I'm going to be doing Mario Kart. So just heads up. If you want to be there for that, go ahead and follow me now. But yeah, so what's next? I had to learn Ruby on Rails. So Shopify, I don't know how much of this is just like publicly known, but I'm pretty sure it's known well enough that Shopify uses a lot of Ruby. So going into it, I'm a front end developer. I've been a front end developer forever. I've done full stack code, but the majority of the back end code that I've done has been either in Python or, Node.js and JavaScript. So the like 99% of all of the back end code at Shopify is Ruby. Now, maybe 5 years ago or so, I learned Ruby and Ruby on Rails, but not well enough for me to feel comfortable being a senior software engineer working on that stack. Now, I focus mostly on the front end, but you kind of need to know what you're doing on the back end too if you're at the senior level of any sort of position as a software engineer. But so I went and I learned Ruby, and I gotta say, like, I'm not a massive fan of Ruby. There's a lot of magic that goes on with Rails. I don't know how many people are familiar with Ruby on Rails, but there's a lot of magic that happens with Ruby on Rails, and that's a good thing, and it's also a bad thing. And I'll explain why in a second, but let me read Alex's comment here. I'm looking to start applying for entry front-end web development jobs. What level of understanding of JavaScript do I need to be useful to my team? Okay. So to answer this question, I'm going to assume you're talking about, so entry front-end jobs, you'll probably be talking about like a junior developer. Okay. Those jobs are kind of hard to find, first off. So I wish more companies would hire junior developers, but junior level jobs are kind of harder to find than like higher up software jobs. But I will say, if you are able to find, junior developer level jobs to apply to, you really don't need to know. You need to know enough to understand how to learn quickly. That's what I would say. So if you get on something like a Codecademy course and you go through the full syntax of JavaScript and you're able to get through that full course, and then maybe you can just do very small projects on your own, like you know how to find the average of a set of numbers using JavaScript, or just simple things like that, like fizz buzz and small things like that. If you can do that without having to go to Stack Overflow for the answers, I feel like you would be okay for a junior developer position if your overall level of knowledge of technology is okay. If you're brand new to technology and someone's like, hey, we're using Bash. Can you open a Bash terminal? And you don't know what a Bash terminal is, and then but you know JavaScript, odds are you're going to be in over your head. So I would just have a decent level understanding of technology and operating systems and hardware in general, just like a very basic level understanding of all that. Go through a Codecademy course on JavaScript, be able to do small projects on your own, feel comfortable with the syntax, then start applying. Amar says, I'm currently a JavaScript developer moving to TypeScript. Is it worth it or not? I love TypeScript, but TypeScript isn't one of those things you should be it's something you can learn on the job, if you get what I'm saying. I love TypeScript for its value, and I use it in my own projects, but it's not like it's just JavaScript with extra features. It's not like this crazy new technology you have to learn. I hope those answers are helpful. Keep bringing them in, and I'll keep answering, but I'm going to continue on with what I was saying. So Ruby on Rails has a lot of magic, and that's good, and it's also bad. It's good because the magic allows you to do a lot of really cool things without you having to write the code. It's bad because if you're not aware of the magic, then you don't understand how things are happening or where these things are happening. And that was one of the learning curves that I had to, and I'm still getting over with Ruby on Rails. And also, one weird thing about Ruby is there's a lot of different ways to do the same thing. And syntax has changed, but you can do, I guess JavaScript is the same. You can write a function 3 different ways, right? I guess I can't really say anything because I love JavaScript, but Ruby and JavaScript have some of the same problems, but they're just different. And that's another thing, is Ruby couldn't be more different than JavaScript. I feel like JavaScript and Ruby are just worlds apart in terms of how they work. Like if you start thinking about how scope works or all these fun intricacies of how JavaScript works, it's probably the opposite in Ruby. um, but anyway, it's a good programming language, and Rails is a good stack. But again, that magic is a little bit rough to wrap my head around. So I think it's one thing that I would love to really sit down and reflect on is what do I really think the best programming language for beginners is? Because I see that a lot of beginners will ask me, or ask in general, what is the best programming language for beginners? And again, my current answer is it depends on what you want to do, right? Like if you want to be a web developer, probably focus on JavaScript because you're going to need to know JavaScript. But I don't know anymore, because you could be a web developer and then you could get into web development and start focusing on like one particular niche of web development that you never touch the front end. Like you might always be on the back end. You could be on an analysis, you could be building APIs, you could be doing all this stuff. You could be focusing on nothing but like GraphQL or nothing but Python or whatever. So I can't really answer it that way anymore because it's sort of complicated. And I used to say Python is probably the best programming language to learn as a beginner because of how easy it is to use and how practical it is. So it's like two birds with one stone. It's easy to learn and understand, and it's also very valuable. So that's why I would always say Python. But the more I'm evolving into my career, the more I'm realizing I don't see Python code very often, really. In large, I mean, I do, but it doesn't. It never seems to really compose the majority of an application. It's Python's use cases tend to be like scripting tools or like patches for, I don't know. It's never like the majority of an application, typically. What I end up seeing is like a massive web application that uses tons of microservices, and then some of the services might use Python. But it's never like a full stack Python application, if you get what I'm saying. There's tons of full stack Ruby applications, tons of full stack JavaScript applications, tons of full stack Java applications, C Sharp, but not really Python. And so now I'm having to rethink my way of recommending that, because Python, again, it is a very practical language. You can do a lot with it. It's very easy to learn, and the things that you learn you can apply to other programming languages. But how hireable are you as just a solo Python developer? I don't know. I feel like you would be better off learning a technology that applies to a stack. So even though Python does have stack technologies like Django, Flask, and other things as well that I can't think of off the top of my head, it's still just not as popular as something like Rails or the Mean or Mern stack. And both of those would be, Ruby or JavaScript. So anyway, let's see if I can quickly wrap all this up. Again, I'm going to be playing Mario Kart on Twitch, username PortExe, right after this. Follow me there if you want to see that. But what I'm going to say is I want to continue doing these videos. I have several, like the code fully written out for several tutorials. I just haven't recorded or edited them. And I've got a lot going on in my life in terms of, work. I'm trying to run, one of my goals, one of my near-term goals within the next 6 months is to run a sub 20-minute 5K, but really I want to get as close to 19 minutes as possible. I know I can achieve sub 20, but I'd love to get sub 19 if possible, preferably by April. So there's that. I want to be able to squat 225 for 5 reps. These are just all things that are in my head that are all goals and that are getting in the way of this. Alex says, thank you. If indeed it is hard to secure junior jobs, should I code for a year or so, then start applying to higher roles? I would say apply nonstop. I mean, if you can, I wouldn't just not try because it's hard. You know what I mean? Like, it is harder to get a junior developer position, but I wouldn't just not try because of that. I wouldn't rely on that happening, but definitely try for sure. If you feel confident applying to these jobs, like, definitely go for it, because it could change your life, and it's a great start, because the second you get into the job, you're going to be learning on the job, and that's more valuable than learning at home, in my opinion. But if you don't have that confidence level, like, if you feel like it's going to be overwhelming and you just don't have that, keep learning on your own, for sure. You don't want to overstress yourself or put yourself in a state of anxiety. That's what I did, but I'm crazy. I learned very quickly, and then just started applying, and then got a job, and everything was way over my head, and it was very stressful. But I like that. That's the kind of stuff I like to do. So, I think I'll stay on here for another minute or two just to see if there's any other questions, and then I'm gonna head over to Twitch for Mario Kart. So, one other thing I'm just gonna talk about while I wait for any more questions to come in is I hope everyone's doing okay. I know the last couple years have been insane, and a lot of people have died, unfortunately, or at least have gotten really sick and hospitalized because of virus. So if any of you that are watching this, had anybody affected by that, sorry. And I hope hope you are doing well now. But enough of that sad stuff. Let's think positive. Well, I think that's going to be it. I'm going to head over to Twitch, username PortExe, to do some Mario Kart. But first I got to put my clothes in the dryer because they've been in the washer for like 2 hours. And I got to put them in the dryer. So it'll be about 5 minutes before I start up on Twitch. So anyway, I'll see you all there. Have a good evening or morning, depending on where you are in the